Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the grand final of the Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition 2021. What an amazing few days we've had, and it's a great pleasure to see you all online here. We have our grand finalists coming up: the University of Auckland, Team 802, and the University of West Bengal National University of Judicial Sciences, Team 822. Before we get started, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the Australian Disputes Centre Chairman, Mr. John Wakefield, to say a few opening remarks. John, over to you. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Deb. And I would like to add my welcoming remarks to yours. It's a great pleasure to be able to introduce the grand final for what is the 5th consecutive Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition, the second that we've had to hold remotely. And it's a remarkable effort to get so many people together, giving up of their time, using their talents to engage in what is a very important competition. As you know, it's also the 35th anniversary of the Australian Disputes Centre. And what better way to showcase the centre and its objects and the way it conducts its business than to be able to hold such a successful competition as we are today. You will have known from being engaged in the competition over the last 3 weeks or so that there are 26 teams listed, and they come from not just the Asia Pacific but further afield. Without any particular order of preference, there's New Zealand, Indonesia, Singapore, People's Republic of China, Korea, Japan, Sri Lanka, Philippines, India, Nigeria, Australia, and Israel. There are 155 team members and coaches. There are 56 professional volunteers from the Asia Pacific, the US, Canada, the UK, including several alumni of the APCMC. There are 15 student volunteers from Australia and New Zealand, including current and former interns with the ADC. As I speak, and starting 6 weeks ago, the competition, or the competitors rather, would have had 4 webinars for students presented by leading ADR practitioners, those being on health and wellbeing, mediation process, negotiation, and mediation plans and negotiating persuasively. The ADC leads the way with these initiatives for students. The competitors have also received 3 dedicated information sessions for professional volunteers, session supervisors, and teams and coaches. There have been 3 networking cocktail events, which is an important part of the competition. There was an official opening, of course, and our thanks to the Diplomatic Corps in Australia for their support in that function. There have been further networking opportunities for students to engage with diplomats and the legal profession, including this afternoon. There has also been an impromptu speech competition, which I think has just occurred. It would be remiss of me not to thank everybody for the great contribution which they've made to the success of tonight and indeed the whole competition. We thank the ICC in Australia for their continuing collaboration. This is now a fixture in the yearly calendar of events. And as I've said, it's not just an Asia Pacific competition any longer. We have representatives and teams from Israel and Nigeria, which is fantastic. I must, of course, thank the organising committee. Without their work, this competition would not have occurred. And of course, the members of the ADC and Deborah Lockhart's team have put enormous amounts of work into making this a great success. There are the sponsors, and you will have seen their names continually through the progress of the competition, and volunteer problem writers. There are volunteer judges, mediators, and session supervisions, and they have added of their time, their experience, and they've added gravitas to the entire proceedings as well, and we thank them very deeply. Lastly, of course, the people that are competing are under the most pressure, and the student teams and their coaches have to be thanked for the enormous amount of preparation they've put into what has been a truly world-class competition. As Deb has said, we have 2 finalists tonight, but I understand from the way in which the competition has proceeded, it's been a close-run thing for most of the competition. So the semi-finalists, of course, were the University of Auckland, the National University of Singapore, the University of New South Wales, and the West Bengal University of Judicial Sciences. Only 2 could be in the finals, and they are the University of Auckland and the West Bengal University of Judicial Sciences. We wish them both the very best of luck thank you for your attention. Thank you for your attending. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. And I'm just going to take a moment to introduce our mediator and judges for this grand final. So thank you to Anne Sutherland for mediating the grand final. To our international judges, thank you so much, Vamesh Shahab and Samir Shah, for your contributions. Bianca Keys, Greg Lawton and Helen Shervin, thank you all for your contributions as judges this evening. It's now my great pleasure to hand over to your session supervisor for tonight's event, who will get the team settled in. We'll go on, turn our screens off, our video screens and mics off, and wish the teams the very best.
Hello to all of our guests this evening. Welcome to the grand final for the APCMC ICC Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition. We're delighted to have you with us this evening. My name is Isabella, as I've already mentioned, and I'll be responsible for facilitating this mediation, including timing and ensuring that the rules are followed. And if you do not already have a water in front of you, please make sure that you do, participants. And another reminder that based on your time of day, if you are relying on natural lighting within the next hour, it may be wise to switch to an artificial source for the interim. I'll also just take this opportunity to ask anyone who is not a participant or a mediator to please turn off their cameras for the duration of the grand final. And a reminder that any record taking throughout the competition in a digital way is prohibited. I remind you, if you do not already have a pen and paper in front of you, to please acquire that if you are looking to take notes throughout the competition. This mediation session will be recorded and it will run for a total of 85 minutes or 1 hour and 25 minutes. I will provide you with a warning at 10 minutes remaining and 5 minutes remaining, so please keep that in mind. Before we begin, I'll call on the students to take the student pledge, after which I'll hand the floor to the mediator, who'll proceed with the mediation. After I have read the pledge aloud, I'll ask that the teams switch on their microphones and say, "We do solemnly promise," after I've read it aloud, of course. Do you, the students, presenting on behalf of the party, solemnly promise that you will abide by the rules of the mediation competition and that you will not communicate in any way with or receive help from your coaches, fellow teammates, or anyone else during this mediation? Please say, "We do solemnly promise." I'm happy for you all to do the forms.
We do solemnly promise.
We do solemnly promise. We do solemnly promise.
Thank you, teams. I will now that we're all settled, I will hand the floor over to the mediator, who will commence the session. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan.
Thank you so much, Isabella, and welcome all of you. The parties it's just the 5 of us now in the room, and well, with Isabella in able support continuously. Oh, good. I was just about to ask Isabella if it's possible, and that's working now. Wonderful. I can see all 4 of you. Can you all see each other and see me?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, my name's Anne Sutherland. I'm your mediator today. I've been appointed by the ICC, and I'm very pleased to meet you. I've been given some minimal information about the background and the situation you're all in. I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you what's really driving this dispute. But first, I'm very comfortable for you to call me Anne, if that's comfortable for you. I'm aware I'm from Australia, where we're known for our informality, and so we tend to use first names, but I do quite a lot of cross-cultural work, and I know that there are many people who actually feel more relaxed with a more formal form of address. So I'm very comfortable if you call me Anne or mediator or Madam Mediator. I'll happily answer to any of those sorts of things. And I wanted to acknowledge the land upon which I'm on, I'm coming to you from the land of the Kulin Nations in our country, which is in the south, in the city of Melbourne in Australia. So I want to acknowledge their elders, past, present, and emerging. I'd like now to find out who you all are. I understand, of course, the parties that are here, but each of you as an individual, could you tell me your name and role here in the mediation today? Maybe starting with the requesting party. I understand we have the Minister of Trade from East Gondwana.
Hi. Hello, Anne. Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everyone, depending on where you are. My name is Zoya Gaffa, and I'm the Trade Minister for the country of East Gondwana. You may call me Zoya.
Thanks, Zoya.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ayushi, and I am the Council for East Gondwana. You can call me Ayushi.
Thank you, Ayushi. And we also have the Minister for Trade from West Gondwana.
Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer. I'm the Minister for Trade for West Gondwana. And in West Gondwana, we're quite informal as well. So you may refer to me as Spencer.
Thanks, Spencer.
Hello, my name is Karan Kulsi. I am External Counsel for West Gondwana. Please call me Karan.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you all. So I'll just say a very few words in introduction. We're gathered here today at this mediation. It's more than anything else, I think, an opportunity for all of you. It's a matter for you what best serves your interests, in particular your country's interests. I note that both parties are here ministers of their governments in very senior roles, and there's serious issues at stake here today. So it's an opportunity, if it's possible and if it's appropriate, for you to sort out this dispute in this room today between you. And my role here is, as you know, I think, not to be telling you what to do or directing you in a particular direction, but to assist you to have that conversation that you need to have in the most effective way possible in the time we have available. And as we've all agreed, the time today is quite limited. So we'll be doing as much as we can in that time. I remind you all of the agreement to mediate that we've entered into. Particularly, can I have each of you just affirm with a nod your commitment to the confidentiality promises in that agreement? I see 4 clear nods. Thank you. So I know that you understand what that means. And in particular, of course, that anything new or learnt today or any options, proposals for a settlement are confidential. And I understand your both ministers are here with full authority to settle on behalf of your governments. Thank you. That was confirmed in my papers. Finally, I just wanted to mention a little about the communication in this online forum. I'm sure you're all very familiar. We all around the world, we've been using this forum now for what feels like a long time. And but I find in conflict, things are often sensitive. I like to just particularly remind us that even more, I think, than when we're in around a real table in a room, it's easy for things to be misread. So little gaps in time, little delays in communication. Also just the visual of, I know I am constantly trying to discipline myself to look at the camera so that you, am I right, if I look at the camera like that, you feel like I'm looking right at you. But in fact, I, of course, constantly want to look down here where I actually see you. So, and I think everyone, is grappling with that sort of thing. So it's a day for listening and for giving each other the benefit of the doubt if you feel someone's not looking at you or speaking in the way that feels respectful. First, let's pause and assume that it's possibly not intended that way at all. Okay. On that basis, I think it's time to get into the matter. As I said, I've had the minimal brief that you all, that we would I know it was sent to me by you jointly, so I know that we all have exactly the same information. But I have to say, starting off, the top of mind question, I'm about to ask you each to make an opening, and I think in mediation it doesn't make much difference who begins, because in the end everyone talks and has an exchange. But I think there's a logic in beginning with the requesting party. So in a moment, are you ready to start us off, Zoya and Ayesha? And are you comfortable with that, Spencer and Karan?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
We'll do that then. First, having read the initial briefing, the top of mind question in my mind is, where are these animals right now? Are they still alive? Are they being appropriately looked after? What is anyone, please, both sides, what's going on with these animals right now?
Perhaps I can speak to this.
Sure.
I don't have a lot of information on this topic, but my assumption would be that they're currently either on the ship or at our port waiting for the tests or results.
Right. Any other information on the East Gondwanan side?
No, and that's pretty much where we're at as well. I think we both look
Good
forward to getting
heavens.
more information.
All right. Well, I just couldn't help noticing that am I right that the ship with the shipment of cattle left East Gondwana on the 12th of August?
Yes.
It took 7 days to get to West Gondwana, where it arrived on the 19th of August.
Yes.
There was then a 4-day pause, and it was it the 23rd? 4 days later, the West Gondwanans Commission notified the East Gondwanan Authority about the problem that they perceived. And now it's the 12th of September, a month later since these animals left the East Gondwanan shores.
That's correct.
All right, well, let's find out. I just couldn't help being very concerned about what on earth is happening on the ground there. All right, let's move on as agreed. Minister, Zoya, please, and your able counsel, Ayesha, could you outline briefly how you're seeing the situation and what you'd like to use today's session to discuss?
Thank you, Anne. Thank you for explaining the process and the rules so clearly. I agree with you that the issues that we have at hand are sensitive, so we really appreciate your assistance moving forward. Thank you so much, Spencer and Karan, for accepting our request to come to the mediation. I hope everybody is doing well. I know that the last few months have been difficult, to say the least, but I think the fact that we're here in this virtual setup only reminds us and shows how committed we are to resolving this issue together. Before moving ahead, I would just like to take a moment and acknowledge that we're all here today from very diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds. And these backgrounds deserve to be recognized and respected. So with that in mind, if at any point something I or Ayushi say seems unclear or requires further understanding, please feel free to let us know and we'll be happy to clarify. We're both here today because we believe that there is more value created through collaboration than litigation. And I think that's a great place to start. Ayushi advised me earlier today as to the importance of openness and honesty in helping us move ahead. So with that in mind, and perhaps for Anne's benefit, maybe I can start by telling you a little bit about myself and setting some context as to how East Gondwana sees these issues. So when I was in university, I had the very good fortune of taking part in several foreign exchange programs, and I loved having the opportunity to immerse myself in cultures other than my own. I constantly try to learn things that I could take back home or find things that I could leave behind. And this is where my passion for international relations and trade was born. I wanted the world to see how much my country had to offer. And you see, trading might seem like a very commercial job, but you and I know, Spencer, that it's a lot more. I like to think of this job as connecting cultures, and West Gondwana is one of our most important partners. As leaders who both care about our country, I'm sure we're equally concerned by the situation we seem to find ourselves. On our part, East Gondwana has always taken pride in our high quality exports of meat like beef and our agricultural products. We have worked tirelessly for generations to achieve our status as world leaders in this area. Now, our two countries, despite our rocky history, have had a mutually prosperous trade relation for over 15 years now, which is in fact why we entered into the FTA in the first place. Now, we accorded you the status of our most favored nation. And while it might be an industry term, we really did and do see East Gondwana as a close partner and friend. So imagine our surprise then when, after over a decade of positive experience, we hear that one of our shipments has been rejected, on the basis of which all further shipments of cattle were also refused entry. Now, of course, we understand the issue from your side, is that some cattle from the August shipment exhibited some signs of some diseases and unhygienic sanitary conditions. We would like to take this opportunity to assure you again that we take these allegations very seriously. You know that in our many years as partners, this is the first time such a grave issue has arisen. So we are committed to getting to the bottom of this and understanding what went wrong so that we can move on from this and resume trade between our great nations as soon as possible. We look forward to moving past this issue and strengthening our trade relations by expanding into other avenues as well. In fact, Ayushi and I have some concrete plans for this that we would love to have the opportunity to discuss and explore today, given the chance. So we hope that we can find a way to mutually cooperate with each other so that this one issue doesn't stand in the way of our future. I firmly believe that we can tackle these issues together, and we hope not only to trade in livestock, but also trade in goodwill, mutual respect, and understanding. As long as we respect each other's interests, I'm sure that the possibilities of what we can achieve are endless. But before we arrive here again, Ayushi told me that what we need to do is acknowledge the past, but more importantly, look towards the future. So maybe to deal with the specifications of this and to streamline our interests, I'll now pass it to her. Ayushi?
Thank you, Zoya. And it's great to meet you, Karan and Spencer. Based on my conversations with Zoya, I understand that both East and West Gondwana have had a long-lasting relationship of almost 15 years, which has been mutually beneficial even on the economic and business front. So my client is definitely committed to ensuring that we can continue this relationship moving forward, of course, keeping in mind the commercial realities of the livestock industry and what is important to both countries' economies. However, I also realize that there are various legal claims arising under the bilateral free trade agreement, or the FTA, between both countries. These include challenging the restriction of trade and determining liability for the potential diseases found in the cattle. However, in my capacity as counsel, I have advised my client to move away from these discussions of liability and breach and instead work towards a more constructive discussion on finding options that actually add value to both parties. And we're quite clear that we want to resolve this at this mediation table today with the help of Anne, and we would prefer that this does not go to the long-drawn process of litigation or arbitration. My role today is merely advisory, and my client will be taking all major decisions on any offers put on the table. So just to broadly highlight our interest today, coming into today's negotiation, there are three major things we'd like to discuss in this order of priority. Firstly, we'd like to discuss the alleged diseases in the cattle and any testing protocols that have taken place. Secondly, we'd like to discuss payment for the shipment or alternative options. And thirdly, we'd like to discuss the potential of a future relationship, in particular, getting trade running again, which is one of our top priorities. That's about it from our side. And if you could possibly note this down and collate it into an agenda after hearing the interest of the other side, that would be really appreciated. And Karan and Spencer, we'd love to hear from you and your thoughts on this.
Thank you, Zoya and Ayushi. Spencer and Karan, please don't feel at this point you need to respond to things, but similarly, how you're seeing the situation and what you'd like to use today's session to discuss.
Thank you, Anne. Good evening, Zoya, Ayushi, and Anne. And thank you for your clear and concise opening, expressing your interest today. I wanted to also acknowledge that there is a difference in the linguistic background between our two nations. So I would like to equally offer that if for any reason, maybe what I am saying or Karan is saying is not clear, please feel free to let us know and we can clarify. I'm very encouraged to hear from both Zoya and Ayusha that you value openness and honesty, and in particular, continuing our relationship between our two countries. I also share this sentiment and hope to have an extremely productive discussion today. And as you may be aware, East Gondwana and West Gondwana are two neighboring island nations with a long and turbulent history. Zoya, in East Gondwana, I grew up with heartbreaking stories about the bloody revolution that split a once united and great nation into two pained halves. However, as I've grown older and matured, I've realized this history is exactly what makes our recent progress even more significant and even more meaningful and impressive. The friendly diplomatic and trading relationship that we've developed and fostered over the last 15 years has marked a promising next chapter, and the signing of our bilateral free trade agreement is an extraordinary milestone in the history of our two nations. And we hoped that this would be a turning point for both our countries. Zoya, that's why we were shocked when the August shipment of live cattle arrived from East Gondwana. The West Gondwana Commission believes that this shipment of cattle was infected with the highly contagious foot rot. And in addition, that it had a tick infestation. Naturally, this raised concerns about our biosecurity. And we felt that in the circumstances, we simply had no choice but to refuse port entry for that shipment and further shipments. Zoya, when you requested us to produce veterinary inspection reports, we wanted to provide you with this information and with these reports so that we could both better understand this devastating and distressing situation. However, regrettably, all of West Gondwana's certified veterinarians were, and currently still are, unavailable due to an emergency in our provinces, and they will not be back for a further 6 weeks. I was reassured to hear how important it was to you, Zoya, that we get to the bottom of this matter. I thought you would share this view, as it's exactly how we feel. And that's why I was disappointed and disheartened when you refused to provide the veterinary reports that I requested to ensure that the cattle were healthy when they left your own port. Zoya, I know that the national health and biosecurity of our respective countries is deeply important to us. And I know that ultimately, we are both here and trying to serve our country's interests to the best of our abilities. I believe that we can achieve this by having an open and honest discussion today enabling our two nations to once again join arms and find ways for us to restore our positive trading relationship and ensure its continuation into the future. That said, there are three things that I need to meet the interests of my people. First, upholding a high level of national biosecurity in West Gondwana. Secondly, continuing to import live cattle from East Gondwana, as that is very important to us. And thirdly, satisfying our financial interests without incurring any significant additional costs. Zoya, I know that the last 15 years have been fruitful for both of our countries, and I believe there's even more room for the relationship between East and West Gondwana to grow and to blossom into the future. To achieve this, I know that the legal background is important, and with that in mind, I've brought along my lawyer today, Karan, to explain our position.
Good evening, Zoya, Ayushi, and Nan. From what I've already heard, both East and West Gondwana share a real interest in promoting free trade. Although we may not be physically sat together today, I hope that these shared interests can serve as a common ground across this virtual table. I'm here first and foremost to protect and advocate for the interests of West Gondwana. In that vein, Zoya, I want to ensure you're fully aware of the risks if mediation is unsuccessful today and I am forced to represent West Gondwana in litigation. Firstly, Zoya, whilst you have voiced your concerns around West Gondwana's suspension of cattle trade, West Gondwana was acting in accordance with Clause 5 of the Free Trade Agreement. The poor health of the cattle from East Gondwana posed a serious biosecurity threat for which trade suspension was justified. As such, there was likely no breach of the Free Trade Agreement. However, Zoya, putting these legal views to one side, Spencer is here because he wants to explore how you can both work together to overcome your country's differences without resorting to the costly and time-consuming process of litigation. And I just want to echo and acknowledge my satisfaction when hearing your own statements, Ayushi, that this was something that you too shared, as well as Zoya. With the help of Anne today, Spencer hopes to restore a mutually beneficial trading relationship that continues to recognize the importance of national health and biosecurity in both countries, which once again I see are common grounds that both parties have raised in their introductions. And it is also great to hear, Zoya, your indication in wanting to strengthen the trade relations between both countries as well, which is something that we also share. To guide that conversation, however, it would be useful to set an agenda. And maybe that is something you, Anne, could assist us with by distilling the common themes between our two openings. From what I have heard, I think that these agenda points could help structure the conversation. The first is the August shipment, and Ayushi's points about testing protocols and payment seem to fit well under this. The second is future trade in terms of future cattle shipments and Westport, which I'm also glad that Ayushi raised as a common point. So yeah, we would be interested to hear how this fits with what you would like to discuss today. And could you please help us navigate from here? Thank you.
Thank you all. So that certainly shed some light for me, I have to say too, in terms of the information I was given in advance about what's happened and how the communication seems to have broken down. So what I've heard you both say is that you've both said, you've both affirmed very clearly your wish to resume the trade and to maintain and potentially enhance the trading relationship between your two island nations. However, it seems to me you have a few obstacles to get over today before that can be done, which of course is why we're here. So that's a very positive thing to hear, and very encouraging that you have that common ground between you in terms of the sort of long view, if you like. In terms of the particular things you've said, each side suggested a few potential agenda points, and there's good overlap between the two lists offered. It seems to me, given you've both asked me to assist with that, is that what you'd like me to do right now before any further discussion?
Yes, that would be great. And perhaps once we do finalise the agenda, it would be great to note it down on whatever platform you prefer.
I thought I might put it in the chat. But what I want to do is settle the terms first to make sure that you're all comfortable with all of them. So there's the August shipment. I'm going to suggest a list and then check them all with you. There's the East Gondwana put it as the alleged diseases of the cattle. So I might suggest reframing that to condition of the cattle. Is that everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Oh, that's fine with us.
Condition of cattle. There's the biosecurity of, it was actually the West Gondwanans that mentioned that. That's clearly been one of the things that's, concern about that is what's created the current situation. I imagine it's equally shared for everyone in relation to their respective populations, but also in relation to their neighbours. Biosecurity. You've mentioned the financial impact, of course. So we could call that financial realities, financial pressures. Do you have a preference?
And we might like to structure this issue not just restricted to the financial part of the payment situation, but potentially a much wider agenda item where we can incorporate alternative options as well to the payment or other collaborative solutions that we come with.
Yes, Ayushi, I agree. Hence, I'm suggesting maybe, subject to what you're all comfortable with, that the agenda topic could be called financial, or even just financial, or financial realities. And then within that, because I noticed it was you, Ayushi, who mentioned payment, but at the time you were quite specific, payment or other options. So it's about a fair outcome, an outcome that you can both live with as sufficiently fair, and financial recompense in some form, whether it's money or not is a matter for later. How about we call it financial?
It perhaps might be ideal to break down the financial between payment in regards to the August shipment and the options associated with that, and then distinguish it with future financial options. So maybe perhaps instead of having it as one point, maybe having financial or payment under the August shipment, and then perhaps a separate agenda point regarding future trade, under which we can also discuss the future financial arrangements that might occur.
Yes, I think that was going to be my final suggestion. Well, no, actually second final, because I'm going to suggest communication if you're comfortable with it, because I'm still quite amazed at the story you've told me so far as to how you could end up in a situation where you have one party asking for alleging that there's disease, not providing apparently the evidence, but then it turns out there's a reason for that, and they're saying they were asking you, the other side, for the veterinary reports. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about all that. It sounds like something went wrong with communication. Okay, let's not. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say, Karen? I'm just conscious of time.
Oh no, that's
if I
all
could
good.
just say one thing before Karan, sorry.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that perhaps the third agenda item regarding the communication could also be perhaps expanded to include a future relationship in general, because we were also interested in collaborating on certain other projects that we had in mind with West Gondwana. So we were hoping maybe you could make this into a future relationship and communication agenda point. And if that's amenable, we can move it.
I usually definitely agree on being interested in future engagement. Perhaps it might still be good to distinguish communication as a separate point, and then perhaps a final agenda point called future relationship. And under that point, I just want to flag that it would be important if we could talk about the future relationship in the context of future cattle shipments, as well as Westport, which is the main port of entry for most goods into West Gondwana.
Yes. You know what? I am, for the sake of time, I'm keen to just get a version of this agenda up, because in my view, it doesn't matter a great deal. I'm confident that between us, we'll make sure you talk about all the important things. We've got, I think there's the August shipment naturally involves a number of elements to it, which I'm not going to bother trying to type on the chat, but I'm sure you're all very cognizant of them. There's around the condition of the cattle, there's the payment, there's the time lag, there's the communication, there's a lot of things. All these things will interconnect. But for the sake of capturing the key headings, I'm going to suggest these ones, and then let's just double check if there's anything really vital that you think would be missed. So the August shipment, the condition of the cattle, biosecurity, sorry, I had financial there, I didn't click it. I'm just going to put financial impacts for all parties. Biosecurity. I could put biosecurity concerns, but I'm just going to put biosecurity. And then there's future. Actually, maybe we'll put communication first, not that it matters, because you can address them in any order you like. Communication and future relationship and opportunities.
We would be happy to progress with that if that is fine for you, Ayushi and Anne.
That's fine for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
correct.
Perhaps in the sake of time, I think it'd be good to start discussing the first agenda.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So
I
well
couldn't
done.
agree.
It's not, well done. Don't worry about all the micro. You'll get to discuss them. The only question I have, you look at that and it seems to capture the problem. That's good enough. Let's go.
Great.
Where would you like to start? Pardon?
I think we just start with the August shipment, as that is the cornerstone of our dispute today. And I couldn't agree with you more, Anne. I think there has been a breakdown in communication. So to set a good precedent for going forward, I want to be very clear with where we're coming from and why we couldn't provide you with the veterinary reports. So as I've mentioned in my opening, there was an emergency situation out in the provinces. And so, because we value the biosecurity of our nation so highly, our entire veterinary office had to go out to the provinces and deal with that emergency. Unfortunately, we would have brought one of those veterinary officers back, but there simply is no mobile reception in those provinces. And so we have been unable to get in touch with them to bring one of them back to essentially conduct a test or an investigation into our suspicions over the recent shipment. And in the sake of transparency and getting through these agenda topics quickly, as I know we don't have that much time and a lot to cover, I was wondering if Zoya, you could share with us why there was some difficulty in providing us with the veterinary reports showing that they were in good health when leaving your port.
Well, thank you for that question, Spencer. I think in the interest of being open and honest, I just want to just give you some context about that, right? We acknowledge the fact that your veterinarian experts might be busy at this point in time. And of course, we acknowledge the emergency that is taking place. We hope everything is all right. But we would just like to maybe as soon as possible get to the bottom of this issue, try to adopt a problem-solving approach and move forward. So at this juncture, I just want to clarify that East Gondwana has always been committed to following all the sanitary and phytosanitary protocols that we're supposed to follow under the FDA and the WTO arrangements in general. You may know, in 15 years of our relationship, something like this has never really happened before. So we're really eager to find a way to get to the bottom of this. In fact, our investigative and all the checks and backgrounds that we do before sending out a shipment are extremely thorough. As you may know, we have traded in feed as well. We import cornmeal from West Gondwana, and even the cornmeal that we import at that stage is very scrupulously inspected. So believe us when we say that we are equally concerned about this. But I think at this juncture, Ayushi may be more equipped to sort of clarify things a little further. Ayushi?
Thank you, Zoya. So as already stated, East Gondwana had done all protocols as requested and as under the various treaties available. However, we just wanted to understand from your side how, say, you came to the idea that there were, say, potential diseases in the cattle if investigations were not conducted. So we wanted to understand from your side this entire situation and what you think about it.
Thanks, Ayushi. We would love to answer that. I'm sure Spencer has some information on that, but I just want to make sure that his question does get answered. He was really concerned, as has been indicated, about the lack of response in providing the adequate veterinary reports that were requested to ensure that those cattle were in good health. And so perhaps before answering that question, it might be good to get an answer to Spencer's question, just so we can get a better picture of the situation.
Oh, absolutely, Karan. I'm so sorry if I missed out on answering the question when we were talking. I think, to just be very frank, the issue with the veterinary reports that you requested is that the reports we prepared had certain very sensitive trade secret information that we in that position were not were hesitant to share. However, we do have some proposals on how to move forward and get to the bottom of this issue, especially as we can take forward in this discussion. We are at this stage willing to send in our own veterinarians to Westport to investigate the situation and get to the bottom of this and mutually examine everything that has occurred. If that answers your question.
Spencer?
I think it does answer my question, and I really appreciate your suggestion on a possible solution. I might just take a brief moment to respond to it. Rather briefly, I think our government would feel more comfortable having our own veterinarians inspect the cattle. And I think we're entitled to it from my discussions with Karan on the issue of state sovereignty. And I think the most important reason for this is how seriously we take our biosecurity regulations. We have a strict certification protocol, and we only allow veterinarians certified under our system to conduct these health checks. So for us, it's really vital that it is our veterinarians who conduct this health inspection. And I think what we should maybe consider is some ways to perhaps bring our veterinarians back from the provinces as soon as possible, despite the obstacle of the lack of mobile reception. And I think maybe one possible suggestion we've come to the table with is sending out some sort of search party to look for them. We have a vague idea, I would assume, of where they are in the provinces. And perhaps if, as you've noted, East Gondwana is also interested in getting to the bottom of this matter as quickly as possible, you might be able to assist us with that, potentially with a helicopter or any other resources you might be able to contribute to that effort. Would that sound like something amenable to you?
Thank you, Spencer. We completely understand your concern. And I think this is a very interesting proposal. We too are more than happy to have your veterinarians check on the cattle, but we would propose instead that we have perhaps a joint inspection of the cattle, since we believe that would lead to a more equitable and more objective idea of what exactly went wrong in the shipment. So if you're amenable to a joint investigation, then we are more than happy to give any other resources you might want in order to ensure that the investigation is carried out optimally, ranging from helicopters to transportation to any equipment you might need. We're more than happy to provide it all. So would you be amenable to the suggestion of a joint inspection?
I think in principle that has a lot of merit to it. However, I still do believe that our veterinarians, their decisions should be final for us. They have gone through our certification process, and in our view, they are the ones most qualified to determine the true state of the cattle. And so I am happy for perhaps a veterinarian from East Gondwana to be present. However, from our perspective, we'll be following the health inspection conducted by the West Gondwanan veterinarian. I wanted to ask, I had an additional question. If you have reason to believe that the health of the cattle was in perfectly good condition when leaving the port, I was wondering if you might have any information about the ship that the cattle were carried on, because perhaps we're missing the true cause of this infection, which might actually have to do with the ship or the shipping company. And so I was wondering if maybe you had any information on that.
Well, thank you, Spencer. That's actually a very interesting suggestion and something that Ayushi and I were thinking and sort of contemplating earlier. But unfortunately, at this stage, we don't really have information on that matter. And I would just like to clarify again that, cattle export and meat export is one of our prime industries at East Gondwana. So we export these items across the world and we take very regular care. So nothing was out of the ordinary in particular in this situation, which is why I think we're all equally alarmed that something of this sort is going wrong. So I think in principle have agreed on the idea of having some form of a joint inspection. Of course, we will have some East Gondwanan veterinarians present over there, and we're happy to help you in looking for your own veterinarians as well. We understand the importance of this. So maybe in the interest of time and in the interest of collaborating and moving forward, we can at least park this issue for now, maybe circle back to it a little later and move on to the issues of the delivery and the payment itself, if that sounds okay to you.
That does seem amenable to us as well. And I also just want to stress as well and it does seem like there is some information gap regarding the evidence over the health of the cattle. And I think it's important that we take that into account and instead focus on how we can overcome those constraints. Spencer, before we move on to that next agenda point, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I think we've covered most of the ground. I wanted to mention, though, that perhaps before we go on to discuss the agenda point you mentioned, Zoya, we should briefly talk about the condition of the cattle. And while I've already mentioned to Anne that I don't have much information on that standpoint, perhaps we can start to address these communication problems by following this mediation. As they are in West Gondwana, we can do a bit of homework and get back to you as soon as possible on the condition of the cattle.
Anne.
That would be, I'm so sorry, Karen, go.
Oh, no, that's okay. You can go first.
Yeah, so I was just saying that that's an equally concerning issue for us as well. And we at East Gondwana do have some very interesting proposals regarding communication that we would like to bring to your light. But considering that we decided to go with this later when we discussed our collaborations, maybe we can discuss it at that point. And Ayushi, if you have anything to say here, otherwise, Anne, we can move forward with your advice.
Yes. And I was just wondering if there's anything you think we may have missed prior to moving forward that we think we should address.
The only question in my mind, but I'm more concerned for you to get through all the agenda points, get a sense of all the pieces so that you can then move further into those options that you've already started flagging. My memory, correct me if I'm wrong, Spencer, was that in your opening, you said that your government had also requested copies of the East Gondwanan vet reports that from before the livestock left their shores, but that hadn't been forthcoming. Are those, I notice at the moment the things you're talking about is, well, how do we assess the cattle now? Is that report, is that information still relevant, or is that no longer relevant?
I think it might still be relevant. However, it is unavailable due to the trade secrets I've heard Zoya say that they might contain. And in any case, we would still be looking for, oh, that's all right. And I was just going on to say, in any case, we would want our own veterinarians who've gone through our own certification process.
Yes, I followed all that, but at the moment, that's your view. No, I don't. I think it's really useful to keep moving through the agenda.
Great. I know, Spencer, that you had some points to discuss under payment regarding that August cattle.
Yes. So firstly, I want to make it very clear that for us to accept and pay for the August shipment of cattle, this would depend on the health and condition of those cattle. So any discussion of payment, the actual performance of whatever we agree, would be conditional on the health and condition of those cattle. With that being said, I wanted to disclose something rather sensitive and perhaps rather embarrassing, Zoya. Earlier in this financial year, there was a clerical error in the West Gondwanan Treasury. And this resulted in no money at all being allocated to the West Gondwanan Commission. And what this meant was that there was no money for us to spend to purchase East Gondwanan live cattle. And so what we need to do today is discuss some alternative methods to payment if those cattle are in healthy condition. And I also wanted to reassure you, Zoya, that if the cattle are in healthy condition, we are very interested to accept them and to pay and to reinstate further shipments of cattle. We just need to find some alternative solutions.
Thank you for that, Spencer. I think that's a very interesting proposal, and we can definitely table it and discuss it. We just wanted to understand the specifics of this, however. So you said that you're willing to, that there is no money currently in the treasury. So we wanted to understand, what would you be willing to do with the shipment? Would you want to retain the shipment? Would you want to say, give some of it back? Would you be willing, how much would you potentially be willing to pay for it? So could we get some idea regarding your situation on this?
Yes. So what we would like to do is we would like to keep the shipment and find alternative methods of payment. So the first suggestion we have for alternative method of payment is earlier this year, we had an incredible corn season. And what this meant is that we have an influx of high grade, non-GMO cornmeal, right? And due to this large surplus of cornmeal, the current price is extremely low in West Gondwana. And so we were interested in discussing a possibility of paying in cornmeal instead of money. I know that cornmeal is an important part of animal feed that you may use to feed your high quality beef and live cattle. And so I was wondering if you may be interested in some sort of alternative solution like that.
Well, thank you for that, Spencer. That definitely sounds like a very interesting proposal. And as I mentioned earlier, cornmeal is something that we've always been happy to import from West Gondwana. So that is definitely an interesting proposal that we can take forward at this stage. But maybe just in the interest of openness and honesty, again, there are certain other options that are available to us right now that we would like to disclose to you. Ayushi, if you want to take this forward.
Yeah, thank you, Zoya. So another possible option that we have, considering, of course, your financial constraints, is that we have another purchaser for this cattle who is willing to take 3/4 of the cattle amount, which means that you would retain 1/4, which is 1,250 cattle. And we would be selling the remaining cattle to this third-party purchaser. So we're wondering if that would be something that you're willing to undergo if you're willing to say, if you only want to retain, say, a certain percentage of the cattle as compared to the entire shipment?
And before you answer that, Spice, I just want to jump in quickly and say that our priority here is you. And we want to make sure that whatever we achieve today is most conducive to both of our relations because of the fact that we are so close in terms of our trade partnerships. So I just want to underscore that in terms of the discussion.
Thank you, Zoya. I really appreciate you being so understanding and helpful in this situation. Coming back to your suggestion, Ayushi, I think that's something we'd be extremely interested in. And perhaps to add on to that, we would like any further shipments during the next 2 months to perhaps be delayed or slowed down. So perhaps if you can use your third buyer to help you manage that, that'd be extremely helpful. And just to provide some context about why that's important to us, as I've said, due to this clerical error, there has been a lack of funds to the West Gondwana Commission. So for the next 2 months, we will be essentially unable to provide financial payment for cattle pending the quarterly budget allocation in November. And so if we're able to use this third-party purchaser to help delay or slow down the deliveries of cattle, that's something that would be extremely beneficial for us. I wanted to note here, there may be another alternative solution that might help us, although I believe we might go on to discuss this in further detail later. As you may know, our main port that is most commonly used by East Gondwana, West Port, is currently in urgent need of repairs. Due to another, perhaps embarrassing error by a certain member of our government, the funding stream normally used to pay for East Gondwanan cattle, a section of that has been directed towards repairing and performing maintenance to Westport. If East Gondwana was able to provide some support or assistance in helping us to perform these renovations and maintenance and repairs to Westport, we would be able to regain that stream of revenue and commit that to paying for the August shipment and potential further shipments. I believe that repairing Westport would be in our best interest for both of us, especially for our long-term trade relationship, as we both rely on that port for our shipping. What would you think of that suggestion, Zoya?
Thank you for that, Spencer. That's also a very, very interesting proposition. And it was something, in fact, that we were also discussing, Zoya and I were discussing prior to this mediation. And this is, in fact, why we decided to add the fourth agenda item regarding the future relationship. So I'm thinking maybe we could potentially table this for now, and we could discuss a potential collaboration on a project at the Westport in the fourth agenda item, which is the future relationship. But moving back to the prior discussion regarding the payment situation, I'd like to propose an offer based on what I've understood are your interests so far. We'd like to propose that you retain 1/4 of the cattle, and we're willing to substitute payment for the cattle for cornmeal instead. And 3/4 of the shipment of cattle will be sold to our third-party purchaser. And in that situation, your only role would be that you would have to retain the cattle for 1 week at your ports. Would this be amenable to you as a potential solution?
Thank you for that, Ayushi. Prior to Spencer responding, I just also want to reiterate the point that you made, Spencer, regarding assistance with the port and how that is also still an option you flagged as being of importance to you. So I just want you to keep that in mind as well and be reassured that I have taken note to address that.
And I might intervene at that moment just to, it's a matter for you, of course, but I think it might be wisest if you can give a response, Spencer or Karan, and I just wanted to flag that we'll treat that as an in-principle response at the moment. That I think it's a little bit early for you to, get too focused on one piece. There are a number of pieces to this puzzle, and fabulous work in all the quite a range of options I've noted down here that you've already alluded to as possibilities. That's all. If you're agreeable with that, Spencer, your response.
Thank you, Anne. I think I agree with you, Anne, that I would like to sort of pursue other options before coming to a clear response on that suggestion. I think it is in principle interesting, and I think it would work for our immediate needs. However, I would like to flag a concern. In particular, I'm wondering how this third-party purchaser may affect our long-term relationship, particularly as our citizens rely so heavily on East Gondwanan beef to meet our yearly protein requirements. So I was wondering, Zoya, what do you see your long-term relationship being with this third-party purchaser?
At that point, I might suggest we pause and come back to that with the future relationship and opportunities. Just quickly, I just want to, before I let you loose on all these options, I want to just check if there's anything else useful in anyone's pocket around these headings. Financial, I think you had a good discussion around the August shipment and the condition of the cattle, which is an unknown. Financial constraints, you spoke, Spencer, about the financial particular, and thank you for your, you shared a particular constraint that's arisen in your context around the funding of the commission. Any other things anyone wanted to put on the table around financial constraints?
Yes, Anne, if I may. Yeah, so I think, Spencer, you mentioned at some point that because of the current issues with the clerical headers in your treasury, you might have to face a situation where shipments to West Gondwana might have to halt for about 2 months, if I'm right. So maybe propose that when we discuss future relations and we discuss the future of cattle trade, of course, is it possible for us to consider an option where shipments of this kind in those 2 months are also substituted by payment in terms of cornmeal instead of monetary payments? And of course, this is a discussion that we can take forward a little later. But I just wanted to say that this is an option that is available at this point as well.
Thank you for flagging that.
Yes.
Thanks. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to summarize what we've heard so far. So
you do that, Karan.
Great. So from my understanding, it seems that we have had a tentative offer from Ayushi in regards to the current August cattle shipment being divided by three quarters going to the third-party seller, and the quarter being paid by West Gondwana through Spencer's proposal regarding the corn. Alternatively, though, Spencer also raised the importance of perhaps delaying some of those imports of the cattle for 2 months due to those financial constraints, and as well as that, it is still possible to also engage with the Westport situation in terms of offering assistance in that regards. Is there anything else that I missed out, Anne?
Karan, I just had one thing to add. So to the proposal regarding the 3/4 of the shipment, we just wanted to also clarify, as I'd said earlier, that you would be required to keep the cattle for 1 week with you at your Westport. If that's amenable to you, then the rest of the deal sounds perfect. And I think we can move on to the next part of the agenda.
Spencer?
I want to highlight that we still have other options for arranging an alternative payment on the table. So while I think the cornmeal option is certainly interesting, I would like to investigate all the possibilities before even agreeing in principle to any particular one. Mm. With that in mind, I think it might be good for us to have a brief discussion of the Westport and what we're looking to need there in terms of assistance from East Gondwana. With that in mind, and if it's okay, right with you, would it be possible for my council to share a handout on this matter?
Yes, absolutely. But before we do, let's just again check on biosecurity. I think in the third party seat, I feel like I've heard clearly your concerns, West Gondwana. Is there anything else anyone is wanting to say about the biosecurity dimension, other angles on it that need to be, they're useful for people to know before you start working on options?
Not as such currently, Anne. I think we can move on to the next part of the agenda.
Excellent.
So
communication, I think we'll come back to, Spencer?
Sorry, Anne. I think I would just like to highlight that if it turns out that there might have been any problems with the health of the cattle, evidently we would need to have another mediation on how we can ensure further shipments do not have that problem and how we can prevent problems like that from reoccurring.
Absolutely, I'm in agreement with that. All of this is underscored on the assumption that the cattle are healthy. And just before we move on to discussing the issue of Westport, I was wondering if it might be useful to answer Spencer's question about the future of cattle trade between our two nations. Considering that we're currently on the issue of cattle trade, maybe before we move on to further investment opportunities, we can just start off the discussion on our future relations with this. What do you think?
I would be happy with that.
Yes, that's where I was about to go. I think it's now the future relationship and opportunities item is effectively taking you into options. Along the way, before we finish, I'll make sure we loop back if unless we get cut out of time, to ensure you've got communication protocols in place so that those future opportunities can come to fruition. So in that mix of options, and you summarised some of them, Karan, you then mentioned the port, Spencer. The only other things I had on my diagram were the issue of getting the vets back from the mountains so that the condition of the cattle can be determined, or coming to some arrangement with East Gondwanan vets. And I think that was it, actually. So, Karan, I thought I'd give you the opportunity to share that handout now, because it's one of the options. Doesn't matter what order you look at the options in.
Definitely.
I think before we share that handout, I might have been confused, and it certainly wouldn't be the first miscommunication between us. But Zoya, I thought perhaps you were suggesting that you could answer my question, in particular about what your future relationship with the third-party purchaser might look like. Do you think you could explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, I was looking forward to doing that, actually. So as you may know, at this point, this third-party purchaser that we're referring to is the state of California. And we are currently in the process of looking for a treaty that is on the cows and carbon dioxide prohibition treaty. But of course, we know that this treaty in particular is very important in terms of our relationship with West Gondwana. So I just wanted to flag off at this point that this deal the current deal that we have in routing the present shipment to California is a one-time thing, and it will not affect our relationship in the long term. However, I just want to say that any decision that we take regarding this treaty in general is also sort of dependent on the future of our relations trading cattle with East Gondwana. I think at present, all shipments seem to be halted, and we can't really make a conclusive decision on the treaty unless we know for certain that cattle shipment will not be a further issue in trade at this stage. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Zoya. I appreciate your forthrightness. I think we were really concerned when we heard that you might be seriously considering this treaty, as we believe it would significantly restrict and limit the exportation and importation of live cattle and processed beef products. And so I would like to reassure you that if we are able to resolve these health issues, we would like to continue and perhaps even improve and increase the trade of live cattle between our two nations. Would that be enough of a reassurance to give you a bit of motivation to perhaps join us in opposing this treaty?
That's very reassuring to hear, Spencer, definitely, because this treaty even our economy is highly dependent on beef export. So we can move on from here, and maybe depending on the future of the biosecurity, we can take a final call on this treaty together.
I think that would be excellent. Oh, you'd add something.
Yeah, sorry, Spencer.
So I just wanted to clarify that this means that we would be, say, resuming trade between both of our countries at the earliest possible, taking into account all the considerations of the treaty. And I think if we're both in consonance with this, then we could maybe move ahead to the next part of the agenda regarding the future relationship.
Yes. Prior to that, there is some technical. I think someone has left their session not on mute.
You would be sad.
Great. Thank you very much for that.
Thanks as well.
Great. Prior to moving on to that, Spencer, is there anything else that you might want to raise or discuss before we move on?
Yes, Anne, would it be possible to have a private caucus with you?
Yes, that's fine. And I think when we come back, I mean, you're already in the option phase, and there's a rich list. If it's useful, I can put them up in the chat. And Karan and Spencer, I assure you, I haven't forgotten about your handout. It's a matter for you to ask me again when you're wanting to raise that. All right, Isabel, can you move the East Gondwanan team into a breakout room so that I can have a caucus with the West Gondwanans?
And also, could we also have a caucus once the caucus with West Gondwana is done? I think that would be a great.
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right. We're now in a private session, so I'll treat anything you speak to me about as confidential. Of course, you're free to put anything you wish of your own information on the table when we get back. And we've got 5 minutes. How can I help you?
Thank you, Anne. I'm really pleased with the progress we've made, and we seem to have found a lot of common ground on a surprising number of issues. However, while I agree that, and maybe I'm thinking aloud here, while I agree that maybe it makes a lot of sense to have the rest of our conversation on the basis that the cattle shipment is healthy, I am concerned that we haven't had much of a discussion on what would happen if it turned out that these cattle were unhealthy. And while I think it is the most productive use of our time to mostly focus our conversation on the assumption that, you know, they may be healthy, I think we need to discuss the possibility and what our response would be if they are unhealthy. And in particular, the fact that we would not want to accept or pay for these cattle, and that we would want to question and maybe put in place some measures to ensure that the biosecurity concerns of our country are met in future shipments. However, I'm worried that by communicating this, there may be a risk of derailing the trust and the progress we've made so far. So I was wondering if you had any advice on how I could communicate this to the other side.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a valid concern. And I think it is important that you raise it and that we provide the opportunity for discussing it. My sense of it is that there's an enormous amount of goodwill in the room, and that both parties are very much hoping the cattle are well and hale on that ship. And I think it's just a commercial reality that if it changes the price, if they're not in fit condition, I would be, you know, just precursing it with an acknowledgement of the goodwill and naming it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think there has been a lot of goodwill in the room. Do you have any thoughts, Karan?
Definitely, I echo what Anne has already said. I think it's important to just make it clear that payment would be contingent on it being on the cattle being in good health. And I think it is okay to disclose that. I think considering the goodwill that is there in the room, and from what I've heard from the other side, they have stressed the pride and importance they take in ensuring their cattle is of the highest quality. So I don't think it would be received poorly. I also think as well, it might be useful in your head to perhaps take note of some of the protocols and processes that would occur if a return would be required, and just be mindful of that if they do raise any suggestions on how that occurs. So, you know, who pays, for example, for shipping it back, how is the cattle handled, for instance, considering they might have that infectious disease, since I know you've told me the importance as well of ensuring biosecurity. So it's just important to keep that reality testing at the back of your mind when they are suggesting how to deal with that as well. But I do think it is okay to disclose it, considering the goodwill in the room and your desire to be frank and honest.
Thank you,
My
Karan.
sense of it is that both parties are wanting appropriate livestock export and import to be able to take place. So it seems to me they have as strong an interest as you have in the cattle being healthy and well cared for. So I think that's something you share,
Mhm.
and a desire to address it. If these cattle have become diseased somehow on this 7-day trip, I imagine both sides are wanting to know how on earth that happened.
I agree with you, Anne. I've noted that the other side has mentioned that they would like to have a caucus, and I'm just wondering if you can ensure we're able to have enough space to have a conversation about this, either before their caucus or after their caucus. It's just really
Indeed.
important to us that this point isn't lost.
Yeah. I think, in fairness, I want to give them the opportunity to caucus straight away, as they've asked in advance for it when we get back. But we will then need to use those remaining minutes very well.
Yes. All right. Well, as long as we're able to have a conversation about this, then let's bring back the slide in and we can have a conversation
And
after.
while we're at it, in terms of, are 5 minutes up?
Yes, 15 seconds remaining. They'll be returning in 10 seconds.
Right.
All right, let's bring them back in.
Are we in?
Oh, they are back.
Can you arrange it, Isabel, so that we're all pinned?
Yes,
great. Great. Thank you for your patience, Zoya and Ayushi. You requested before we went into that caucus that you also wanted one. Would you like that immediately?
Yes, that would be preferable.
All right, let's do that. Isabel, can you move the West Gondwanans to their own breakout room now?
Thank you, I've done that.
I think I'm still waiting for an invite to the breakout room.
There should be one.
Yet to receive it. Oh, that's all good. Know how Zoom works. Cool. Oh, I still don't. Oh, there we go. I think I've received it now. Thank you very much.
We've resent it. Thank you.
So this session is confidential within itself. I won't be bringing things back to the table, but of course you're free to put anything on the table you wish of your own information. How can I help you?
Thank you, Anne. I think Ayushi and I are both pretty pleased at the way this session is going so far. Of course, we have made some great progress, but there's still some underlying frustration here because at the back of our mind, the issue regarding the shipment of the hygiene of the cattle is still really important at this stage because we have done everything we can possibly, and all of this discussion on trade, payment, everything is fully dependent on what ends up happening to those cows. So, I mean, at this stage, I do understand that there is importance of getting to the bottom of this issue and investigating. But we do have some concerns about this investigation not being as transparent as we might like it to be. And it's really important for us to have trust moving forward. And maybe Ayushi, you can actually get into the specifications of this a little better.
Yeah, thank you, Zoya. So just as Zoya already spoke about, something like the joint inspection and sending our own veterinarians there is actually very important, considering that the West Gondwana has alleged that there have been various diseases found in the cows, but they haven't given any proof or any investigative reports to actually prove that those conditions exist, nor have they actually taken any steps to actually finding out what the cause for those defects are. And from our perspective, and what Zoya was telling me, it makes it seem like the entire biosecurity issue might just be a kind of smokescreen to hide the fact that they do not want to pay for the entire shipment of the cattle, which they actually brought up later in the negotiation. So we were a little uncertain about, the kind of trust that we had built in this relationship and how we wanted to go back to and revisit the first part of our agenda to iron things out a little more before moving to the future relationship once again. So we were hoping maybe you could, you're much better place, of course, Anne, to maybe propose this to the other side and propose maybe a shifting of mindsets as we move on to the next part of the joint session.
Well, without revealing your concern, I don't have an apparent reason to take us back to talk about the shipment again, that's all. I think maybe what's best is if you simply raise the concern. If there seems to be a great deal of goodwill in the room, I have the impression that you're all wanting this export-import relationship to work. So that's a new, I didn't realise you had that concern about their bona fides around the biosecurity issue. But I agree with you that if things are going to work in the future, you need to feel that there's trust. And I think it's worth asking about. And I would simply precursor it with all of those lovely things you've said to me around your hope that this is not the case. But, you know, it does, if one question I was going to ask you on your facts, I understand on the papers, it sounds like you're quite confident that the cattle were healthy when they left your port. Is that the case?
Well,
I just wanted to check whether you had any unspoken uncertainties around that issue.
No, and nothing unspoken as such. I think we're very clear here that, of course, the issue of proof and evidence is something that's a bit tenuous on both sides. Neither of us are at liberty to disclose appropriate papers, which is why I think we suggested an investigation on the field to see what is going wrong. So I think at this stage, when we were told that East Gondwana would have precedence in these kind of investigations because of some legal principles, I think it just was a little frustrating for us because we were here under the assumption that this is a problem-solving approach that we needed to adopt without getting too much into the litigating matters. So I think, which is why we were sort of insistent on having a joint inspection where both of us have equal say and there is neutrality moving forward.
Well, I think a joint inspection is a perfectly appropriate proposal. I would encourage you to put it if that's what you want.
No, thank you. I think we definitely take your advice and mention it in the joint session.
There are 15 seconds remaining. Thank you.
And I take it, my understanding of the papers was that it's the East Gondwanans that are responsible for the condition of the cattle in transit. So, right. That's what it was. Isabella, could I ask you how much total time we have left in the session?
We have, 9 minutes remaining at this point.
Okay. And have we added a minute or two for that lost time in the caucus movements?
We can do that.
I think that'd be appropriate.
All right. That to occur.
Call it 11 minutes from now.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we have 11 minutes under our agreement on the session today. Of course, we can reconvene if that's something you want. How would you like to spend this time?
I think it'd be a good idea for us to discuss potential options. And I would like to briefly address what I discussed with Anne in our caucus. And I don't want to spend much time on this, so I just want to briefly say that all of the options we've been discussing so far have been prefaced on the idea that the cattle shipment is healthy. And I just wanted to say that these options are all conditional on that fact. And if the shipment turns out to be infected with foot rot or with a tick infestation, we would not feel comfortable accepting or paying for that shipment. But I think if that were the case, we would clearly, as part of our new resolution to have better communication, have a second mediation. I think at this point, it might be really useful, given we have a really limited amount of time, if Karan could present our handout, given we did mention it close to 20 minutes ago. So as long as that's all right with you, Anne, would that be possible?
Yes, just before we do, I wanted to give each side the equal opportunity after the caucusing to raise anything that they had clarified for themselves in caucus. So East Gondwana.
Thank you, Anne. We completely understand where you're coming from, Spencer. And I think your idea of having the payment contingent upon the health of the cattle is definitely something that we can discuss at a future mediation. We'd just like to flag off one major interest of ours here, which is ensuring that a joint investigation does take place and our veterinarians also have an equal chance to inspect the cattle for the sake of parity and objective testing and objective results. So that's something, of course, we would want to discuss. I don't think there's a lot of time remaining, which is why maybe we could move ahead. But I think this is something that we could flag off for our future mediation sessions and begin with that possibly next time.
I think absolutely. If it turns out that our veterinarians find that there is some problem with the cattle, we can have a second mediation where we discuss potentially having East Gondwanan veterinarians inspect them as well. But I think that'd be conditional on our veterinarians discovering a problem. If they find they're healthy, we may not need to have that conversation. I think now would be a good time, Karan, for you to bring up our handout. As we've discussed, Westport is currently in need of urgent repairs. What we are proposing is that East Gondwana can, in the spirit of collaboration and brotherhood that I think for the last 15 years has pervaded our relationship, we might be able to work together to improve this important piece of infrastructure to benefit our long-term trading relationship far, far into the future. With that in mind, we think it'd be really exciting to explore the possibilities for assistance and contribution to this project. And as part of showing our good faith and goodwill, we'd be very excited to rename Westport to Gondwana Port, to express that spirit of unity that I believe is continuing to foster and blossom once again between our two nations. I think it'd be amazing if perhaps Zoya, you yourself, or anyone else from your government be part of the opening ceremony once we are able to complete this renovation. And we could even have a small plaque commemorizing and really memorializing your contribution to the project. I think this would be an excellent way to meet both of our interests. And now, Zoya, I'd be interested to hear what your potential thoughts are or ways that you may be able to contribute.
Well, thank you for that, Spencer. This is definitely a very interesting opportunity. And I know that we don't have time to get into the details of this right now, but I just want to say that this is an interesting venture. And we're definitely interested in taking this forward. I think we as East Gondwana are definitely interested in furthering our connections by developing a joint like Westport together, because we also actually had a suggestion that we could maybe move our relationship forward from just cattle export to exploring the avenues for exports and relations in terms of agricultural products. So definitely, I think the renovation of the Westport and maybe including a new berth as well for these particular purposes would be definitely interesting for us moving forward. So I think in principle, we're in agreement, but of course, this is dependent on a lot of other factors that we can discuss at length further.
I really appreciate your enthusiasm, especially for this project and for a continuing relationship. I understand we don't have much time today, but I really liked your idea of taking our relationship further than it has been in the past. And I think as part of that, one suggestion I wanted to flag today, which we might be able to discuss at a later mediation, is the capacity for us to collaborate a little bit further on both of our industries. You mentioned trade secrets, and perhaps those are related to the agricultural industry. And I understand your concern and need to maintain that secrecy to benefit your own industry. However, I think there might be a lot of room and scope for potential collaboration in the future to further improve our own agricultural industry so that we can have a more prosperous region and improve both our economic potentials.
Thank you.
Do you want to speak to that, Karan?
Yes, definitely, Spencer. I think from my understanding as well, it would be important to flag, given the limited time here today, that it might be useful for us to also note on a heads of agreement the agreements that we have made in principle, and in particular also to inform our respective agencies on the information gaps that we currently have, particularly in regards to the health of the cattle, as well as the capacity to assist with the project regarding the port, but also in terms of the payment plan regarding the arrangement with the August cattle that has been made. And so it would be really important as well from our perspective to note how much corn you would actually need for that quarter cattle as well. And in particular, I do want to stress that at this point in time, from my understanding, and feel free to pitch in if I have misunderstood anything, we do appear to have reached agreements in principle regarding the August shipment with the 3/4, 1/4 split with West Gondwana paying for the 1/4 through Spencer's suggestion through the corn. And I also note, Ayushi, your point regarding holding the cattle at the port for about a week as well. And that's something, Spencer, I'm sure you can definitely inform the port department about.
Yes, we can accommodate that.
And to have the relevant biosecurity procedures. It also has become great to know that Ayushi and Zoya have expressed openness to delay the shipment regarding some of the next cattle that has been potentially scheduled by up to 2 months to accommodate the delay in payment that West Gondwana needs to facilitate. Yes.
I'm so sorry.
If I may just, Karan, it might be what you're going to say, Zoya. I just wanted to flag that to check whether you want to call that an agreement in principle. My sense of it is that might be a step too far at the moment.
exactly.
All right.
I think it's just an
I've put up the
option.
heading. Let's just grab them all, and I'm calling them options.
And before we can move on, I'm so sorry. If I could just flag out one point. Karan, I think you mentioned that we're willing to postpone the 2 months of the shipment that you were talking about. I think it's an option that we're willing to explore. Instead of postponing the shipment, is continuing with it and then explore the corn meal payment option. That, of course, you could get back to once you discuss and consider all of your options. And I'm so sorry, before I just hand off to you, maybe we can just flag off over here the importance of the joint inspection in your summary as well.
Yes.
And then, of course, the future of our relations. Ayushi, I just think that you had something to add. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, I just had something to add, in fact, before Karan started summarizing, which was that I think we were also considering certain future options, which we didn't get a chance to mention earlier. And Spencer, considering your commitment to ensuring trade relations, we want to assure you that we have a similar commitment. And we propose actually setting up an East-West Gondwana Trade Commission to investigate the possible furtherance of this trade relationship between the two countries. And secondly, we'd also propose possibly a joint press statement showing a mutual front between both of our countries. So these considerations taken alongside our earlier options as proposed by Spencer and Karan regarding the investing in the port and various specifications regarding how we can further collaborate the relationship, I think are great options that we could maybe flag off to discuss just before our next mediation session, whenever we schedule it. And if you'd like to add anything.
Oh, sorry, I just had a few more options I wanted to circle us back to. I really appreciated those options, Yushi. I think especially the East-West Trade Commission is something that we were interested in proposing, and I think we'd be very excited to pursue that. I also wanted to bring us back to some options that we had highlighted earlier, in particular, a potential investigation of the ship in the case that there was a problem with the health. I think that investigation might, especially given your own veterinary report, Zoya, be really beneficial to ensuring something like this would not happen again. I wanted to highlight that I think we have reached a ground where potentially we would need to meet another second mediation, but I think a solution of sending 3/4 of the current August shipment to your third-party purchaser would work, and then paying in lieu with cornmeal, a high-quality cornmeal, as well as then using that in the next 2 months before our next budgetary allocation, paying for those shipments, as long as there is enough. We might need a second mediation really to work out whether it's feasible, working out how much cornmeal we have, but paying for those instead of with normal West Gondwanan dollars, but with cornmeal, a high-quality cornmeal. As you've mentioned before, how important that is to you. I think as well, just building off the West-East Gondwanan Commission, I think it'd be really interesting if we didn't look just at ways to expand our trade, but also ways we could improve our industries. So perhaps increasing the scope of that commission to increase ways of knowledge sharing so that both our industries and our experts can communicate to each other. I just wanted to highlight that, Ayushi, you're about to pass off to Anne, and perhaps now would be a good point for Anne if you wanted to maybe provide a neutral summary of where we have reached so far in the mediation.
Apologies, teams. We've actually reached the end of our mediation for today. I'll invite you to just switch your mics off at this point. Judges and teams, I'll be moving you into separate rooms. Judges will be discussing their final results, and they'll return in 15 minutes to discuss their results and provide feedback to the teams. And I welcome Deborah Lockhart, who will speak for a moment while the teams and judges deliberate.
Well, what can I say? Wow. Incredible performances, teams. You are a credit to your universities and to all of the hard work that you've been putting in over many, many weeks now, and a credit to that hard work and to your coaches. So we'll have them, I'm sure that the judges will have more to say on it when they get back, but just a big shout out from me for an incredible performance this evening. We've had incredible performances throughout the competition, and including the semi-finals this morning, and of course not forgetting that we had some very significant teams excelling with us this morning. While we wait for the judges, I wanted to call on Rajesh Sharma, who is known to many of you. He's a senior lecturer at RMIT, currently in his 6th or 7th lockdown in Melbourne as we speak, looking remarkably dapper and buoyant for the occasion and in the circumstances. So welcome, Rajesh. Rajesh has been at the forefront of the inspiration and execution of the Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition since its inception. Well, since before its inception. I wanted to invite Rajesh to speak to us tonight because it is the 5th anniversary of the competition. So it's a great opportunity for us to stop and reflect on all of the work that has happened and all of the learning that has happened. So without further ado, if I may introduce you to Rajesh Sharma to speak with us about the APCMC and the learning that we gained from that. Thanks, Rajesh.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. And congratulations to the finalist team for such an excellent presentation today. And I'm sure all the people who watched you and who will be watching you through the video or later on, they will all enjoy it and they will learn from it. It's very interesting, all the team members and the participants this year. What you have seen today is, or these 2-3 days, is a 5-year-old baby, a toddler who has started and now ready to join the primary school. So it's a 5-year-old baby. When it was conceived, it's an interesting story, as I'm told. First time when this moot was conceived or thought about it, bringing it here, it was almost like some of the like a stalwart of mediator or mediation professionals who went to Paris and take part into the ICC Paris mediation competition. They went over there and they saw the competition and they came back and they thought that why not in Australia, we should have the same kind of a competition. And that will help us, help the Australia students and other students to also run through this competition and learn through this competition. So that was the idea and it was brought over there. So it was decided. However, I must say that at this moment, I was not in that group of deciding about this competition. But what happened? I came to Australia in 2015 from Hong Kong after 20 years in Hong Kong, running the moot, designing the moot and everything. And I thought that is enough for me. Now I can come to Australia down under and I will completely be down. Nobody will find me, nobody will touch me, and I will be out of the moot. But as it happens, I had a lunch meeting with John Arthur, another barrister who is now the chairman of the CIR of Australia. And we were having lunch and he said, oh, now you are here, you should join the group. There's a group of people who are here and they are organizing this moot competition. And at that time in Melbourne, in Victoria, government was promoting Melbourne as a destination or as a hub for the dispute resolution. That was the plan. So I was invited to join this meeting. And I tell you that today, at least we can see each other, thanks to Corona and thanks to Zoom, that we were looking at each other. When I joined for the first time, we were on the telephone call, and it was arranged by ICC Australia, Brian. They organized, we got a number, we called it, and we were listening to each other. And whenever somebody was speaking, they had to identify who they are, and then they have to speak. So I was, first time when I attended that meeting, everybody, when they started introducing, I was totally surprised that the people who were there in the room, like they were all the known person from the Australia, like the godfather of mediation and all, like, and I can say. And I see today, Alan Lambury is also here in his, if we can see him, and I will request him to show himself later. I heard his name, and I was surprised, wow, he's here too. And then I see like other names which came, and just your mediator, and who was a brilliant mediator to this evening, she was also in the room. Brian was there, Rosemary Howard, and another lawyer, Peter McLaren, he was there. And all these people were talking about this, organizing this program. And then I started contributing, and we started thinking about the competition, how to organize another. That's how the competition came. And the one thing was clear at that time, then everybody I was hearing is that what happens in Paris must happen in Melbourne. So it was like, not like a movie or a story where say what happens in somewhere else should not be, what happens in Las Vegas should not be brought anywhere else. So it was not kept at that time like this. So we all decided that we will follow ICC Paris, and ICC Paris was very kind to give us even the moot problem to run for the first time. So basically we were totally dependent on them. It was a face-to-face. So our aim was that at least we should touch the double digit to invite the team, and we should make it international. So it was a very challenging time at that to invite the team all the way from other places to come to Australia. Particularly the international teams have to come so far away. So we had to convince them to come. So we worked together. We fortunately touched the double digit, little more than that. We had that. And in those 10 teams or 10 plus team, I can say that we had international teams also. We had a team from Singapore, we had a team from India, and we had a team from New Zealand, and that made our international. And that's how the first international moot started. On the day of the moot, inauguration, what was Anne established a boot camp for all the judges, teams, and the volunteers. And over there, she gave them the training into how to judge so that a consistency can be maintained and a fairness can be maintained in the competition. So, and Alan Lambury and others, like they had to train them from since afternoon till evening. And by the time they came out, they were all tired. And the one thing they were looking for is to have a nice glass of champagne or beer or something else. That was ably provided by, and very well provided by, Peter McLellan on his sponsorship in his law firm, which we enjoyed. I'm sorry, because of COVID, you have not been offered those things in this moot competition. But trust me and believe me that once we will meet face to face, you will be given the same thing again. So don't worry, at this time, you have not losing anything in that. So we had a great cocktail. We had a great lunch before the final, and we had a great drinks after the award ceremony in the very first year. Everything went, and we must thank the Victorian Government, Victoria Bar Association, and many others who supported wholeheartedly to make it good. So the baby was welcomed with a very warm welcome and the open heart. Everybody contributed to that. When we reached to the second year of this moot competition, at that time, we made a change. Change means that we wanted to be self-reliant. And again, I thank Alan Lambury to lead the team of moot problem drafting. And he led from the front. He had a group and he got a very good draft of the moot problem, which we used in that sense. The second thing which happened for that moot, I must emphasize, is that the success of moot, what we believed, is that when the ex-mooters start coming and joining the moot, that should be the success of a moot competition. I'm happy to tell you that in the very second year, we got 2 3-year students who took part in that. And next year, they came back as a coach of their team or another team, and also took part in the competition as a mediator. And that was a great surprise for us, and very happy. And we were very surprised with that. So everything was quite good in that sense. So that was very good. When we reached to the third year, as it happens in any journey, we hit the roadblock in a sense that at a very last moment, supports which we were getting from the government and the others, we did not get it. So it was very difficult to find the venue and all those things. It happened. So we reached to a very crucial time where Brian had a discussion with us, and it was like a discussion in as if we were in NASA. In NASA, when we were discussing about that, as you see in the movie Mars or any other movie which you have seen, go, no go. We have to decide on that one. And we all agreed and we all decided to let's go ahead. And that was a challenging time in that case, in that year, in the very third year of that. We arranged the room, we did everything, and it was done. But it was a blessing in disguise, in a sense that we wanted the students to get this experience of the mooting. Those who registered, we did not want to tell them that, sorry, we cannot do it. We went ahead with that. And that third moot was an example where the moot can be run by the students and for students. I must tell you that two of the ex-mooters, Katrina and Nikki, they become the administrator and they run the moot. And they did very good job as a student. They planned very nicely, and ex-mooter as an alumni, they came and they did a great job. And that year, we also had judges coming from overseas, as far as the US and other places they came, and they were all very happy and they were very all nice about that. Then fourth year, as you see, we got very fortunate to have Deborah taking this moot competition, and from there she has started. But last year, as you know, like any other moot, we had this problem of COVID, and we had to switch from the face-to-face to Zoom. And the rules committee was very much engaged in that one, that how we can make this moot very fair. Would there be any problem if a student will get any kind of assistance if they are sitting at home or in somewhere else far away from us when we are not looking at it? All those things were discussed. We made the rule. At the end, we trusted the team, we trusted the student, and we said that everything will go well. And it did go well. So that was a fourth year. Deborah arranged it very nicely. And this year is the fifth year. You have already seen it. I don't have to say anything about it. And I'm sure you all agree with me that this year also has been organized in a much better way. Very nice. And your experience must be very rewarding. This year was important in the sense that we had the judges from Asia Pacific. So name is not the competition, name is not only Asia Pacific, but Asia Pacific. We got the judges, we got the team, we got so many new teams. As far as Africa, we got it from there. So we are very happy, Africa, Israel, and in Peru, all those places where we have got it, very, very happy that this moot has done so far. So what we have learned in these 5 years, just to tell you in short, that we have always treated this competition not just a competition, but a journey for learning, where the students can come and learn about the techniques of skills of mediation. Of course, they are coached, but here we want them to learn from others. And I must tell you, the mediation in Australia is very strong. You can learn from there. Every time, and everyone, we tell the judges and the mediators to give extensive feedback, because we consider the feedback is a great learning example. And that's why we emphasize on that. And we give extensive feedback on that. And I'm sure this year, you must have realized that the feedback has helped you and must have helped you. And it gives you good opportunity for that. Third thing, we also wanted to our students, or all the students who have taken part in this moot competition, to establish a good network. And this network, and that's why you see there were so many networks were organized in this one. And after the award ceremony, also you will have a network. So please maintain that network, is that one important thing. Another important point, we are emphasizing, and we will continue doing it. We want everyone taking part in this moot competition. If any students want to get an opportunity for internship, a short internship, with any of the mediators and the mediation centers, they should be given an opportunity. It is for students who will learn from this process, and they should get in touch with those experienced people. So I call upon all of you who are the mediators and judges to put your name forward and help all these students, whoever want to do a short mediation. Now, thanks to COVID, they are not traveling, so at least they can get this experience or one-to-one or in the group, something that they can do internationally and through internet. It will give them a time, it will give an opportunity for them to learn the cross-cultural and different skills which are used in different places. So I strongly encourage you and suggest you to come forward and do that. So this is what we want to do. And later on in the award ceremony, you will find that many opportunity as compared to last 4 years, we have done this. We also ask all our alumni to come forward, join, because the mood grows strength to strength if the alumni will come. So that's why I want you to come back. All of you who are here, this young boy who is 5 years old, I want you to be their brother or sister or uncle or auntie or grandfather or grandmother, whosoever role you want to adopt, to help this mood to follow. And the alumni, please come forward and join. Next year, perhaps we will have an alumni association. You join, stay in touch, let us know what you are doing, and come back and join us and contribute as many ways as you want. And trust me, with your help, we will make this baby a good young baby, a very nice teenager, and a very responsible adult. And I'm sure we will take them to that far with you. Here is Alan. Please welcome. He is the one who brought this mood competition. So all the credit goes to Alan. Good to see you. So thank you very much, everyone. From my side, this is our short journey of this learning experience through this Asia Pacific competition, mediation competition. So thank you very much here.
Thank you, Rajesh, and thank you, Alan, for popping on. It's great to see you. How are things up in the Hawk's Nest?
Well, we've escaped the lockdown, so that's the first good thing. The second good thing is I get to play golf twice a week instead of only once. I'm doing all my mediations online.
That is wonderful. So, thank you, Rajesh, for that wonderful journey through from our inception and toddler years to kindergarten. So we've still got a lot of growing to do, team, and I would certainly echo Rajesh's call for potential internships. You will see from the presentations tonight that there will be a lot of internships being extended, and we invite all hosts to reach out to us as we arrange that. We are honoured to have the CEO of the International Chamber of Commerce in Australia, and as well as the Australian Chamber of Commerce with us here tonight. So Brian Clark, welcome. As many of you know, Brian has been instrumental in this competition since prior to its inception, and those same meetings with Rajesh, I'm sure. So Brian, I'm going to hand over to you to announce the winners of the APCMC 2021. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Deborah. And I really enjoyed Rajesh's story of the development now to our 5th anniversary and 5th competition. This is fantastic. It took an awful lot of time and effort, and this competition, as with all of them, has as well. And I'd like to share my own congratulations to all of the people that have been involved. It doesn't happen just at the end. There are many months of planning and development, and Deborah, you and your team done a sterling job again this year. Just reflecting as Rajesh did on the past years and how we got to here too, I'd like to particularly make note of the other organisers that were involved when we were doing it ourselves. And Hayley Whiteley was working with me at the time, and neither of us had any understanding of what mediation, let alone mediation competition, should look like. And we had these mediators who'd been associated with the Paris competition saying, well, you just do it like this. And we didn't know what like this was like. and so we were flying blind, and we had to spend a lot of time with Alan and Rosemary and Peter McMullen and Delcy Lagons de Anglem and Rajesh and others, and actually mapping and writing down, is this many people, this rooms, you know, these amounts of times. It was very difficult time, but we've got to here, and it's just so wonderful to see And I'm also really grateful, as well as Rajesh indicated, we've seen the progression of not only the professionals that are involved, but the team members in the first instance then become coaches or mediators, etc. And I was really pleased the other night as it was part of the welcome, and Mohit from OP Jindal sent me a little quick message, and it was really great to see he's still involved. You know, he's moved through that progression. I'm sure there are others too, but just wonderful to see multiple teams now coming out of India. We have the breadth coming. We have Japan interested for the first time. We have Israel, number of others, China. We have, of course, the stalwarts in Australia. We still yet to get all of the states in Australia. New Zealand has always been with us, so thank you very much. But it's really wonderful to have seen it get to this point. I won't labour it anymore. People are in suspense. We've taken a little longer. It was clearly a difficult decision by the judges, and I'm pleased to announce that the winner tonight was the West Bengal National University of Jurisdictional Sciences. Congratulations to your team, as Diksha and Ayushi, and well done. And of course, then the Auckland University team becomes our runner-up. And I'd like now to hand over to Susan Gatford, from our very great supporter in the Victorian Bar Association, to say a few words as well.
Thanks, Brian, and welcome, Susan.
Thanks very much, Deborah and Brian. I joined first in congratulating everyone involved in this competition. It's been fascinating to watch and to hear of its development in such detail as I've heard tonight. I'm sure it will continue to go from strength to strength. But on behalf of the Victorian Bar and as a member of its Alternative Dispute Resolution Committee, congratulations to the winning team, the West Bengal National University of Jurisprudence, for winning the 2021 ICC ADC Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition. For the past 5 years, since the commencement of the competition in 2017, the Victorian Bar has awarded the Henry Jolson Prize to the winning team in recognition of the outstanding performance of each of the members of that team. The award of the prize in the name of Henry Jolson OAM QC is intended to be, and he is a great honour. Henry was a much loved and highly respected member of my bar, the Victorian Bar, for almost 40 years. He was also a pioneer of mediation in the legal profession. He served on the Victorian Bar's ADR committee, which I'm now a member of, for a record 18 years. He was also a foundation member of the Law Council of Australia's ADR committee, sitting on that committee for 20 years and chairing it for 7 of those years. He received a Medal of the Order of Australia in 2012 for service to the law, particularly in the area of ADR, to professional associations and to the community. In September 2012, he was inducted as a living legend of the Victorian Bar. He died too soon in 2013, aged 66. In 1985, when Henry was what's called a senior junior barrister, that is, an experienced barrister who hasn't yet taken silk, and when mediation was much less prevalent and well known than it is today, he received a call from a judge of the Victorian County Court. At that time, the court had a huge backlog of civil cases awaiting trial. Henry and others mediated many of those cases, helping the court to clear the backlog and setting the course for mediation to become an essential part of that court and other courts' processes from then on. He was the mediator of choice for numerous Victorian solicitors over many years. As a very junior solicitor, I was asked to engage him in one of my Supreme Court cases. I saw at firsthand how he operated. He was very polite, exceptionally well-groomed, and a true gentleman. He was also quietly persistent, going the extra yard and never giving up on the process. His quiet enthusiasm was infectious, and the description silver-tongued was often and aptly applied to him, skillful at persuading people to trust and to believe in what he said and to do what he prompted them to attempt. I remember particularly well one of the early mediations I did with Henry, which is one of the reasons I volunteered to present the prize today in his name. I was a heavily pregnant junior solicitor, due to finish work in a few days' time. As the mediation went on well into the evening, I think at around 9 or 10 p.m, we discovered that it was Henry's 50th birthday. He hadn't told us that earlier. His family had had dinner celebrations planned. Didn't seem to trouble him. He just stayed with us. We finished with a successful outcome at 1 o'clock in the morning. As Greg Lawton said, that probably not that unusual, but was unusual to me as a junior solicitor. He then went out of his way to drive me home. I had my first son, who was overly eager to enter the world before I had even finished or packed my hospital bag, on the very next day. And I've never forgotten Henry's kindness and consideration to me that evening. His comments in 2012, when he became a living legend, included the importance of communication, including that lawyers often have their own language and either translate or filter clients' comments wittingly or unwittingly. And also his gratitude that those same lawyers trusted him enough to speak with the decision makers, their clients, alone without lawyers, which, as he often said, shifts the dynamic and can produce an unexpected resolution. The skills and commitment that have been on display today remind me of Henry, that a scripter silver tongue would not be out of place for many of today's participants. And I'm pleased to see his commitment to mediated outcomes continues to thrive both in daily legal practice and in competitions such as this one. I still remember well and continue to call on and apply what I learned from Henry in my mediation practice. And I hope that you all continue to use and develop the open and good communication skills that you've demonstrated throughout this competition for the benefit of your future clients in whatever country, jurisdiction, or area of law that you go on to practice in. Remember too, to keep thinking outside the box, to keep shifting the dynamic, and most importantly, to keep engaging in and championing what we saw tonight, polite, open and good communication in your approach towards negotiation and mediation and in your practice generally. I also echo Rajesh's words to continue to support this baby. To the winning team, congratulations, you receive a certificate from the Victorian Bar awarding you the Henry Jolson Prize in recognition of your victory and skills as mediators of the future, and also a cash prize of $600 to be divided amongst you as the winning team. Congratulations again and well done. Thanks very much, Deborah.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. And your wisdom and Henry's wisdom on and his attributes of enthusiasm and optimism and collegiality, as well as collaboration, are really hallmarks of this competition and hallmarks of what we've seen throughout the competition with the students. So congratulations, thank you, and thank you, winners.
Yes,
and
well
we're now going to award the Australian Dispute Centre Prize to the winners, as well as the finalists, the runners-up. So to that end, we have our Australian Dispute Centre associates. So Christelle, Helen, and Cheryl. Hey, Cheryl. And Helen and Christelle, and Cheryl's coming. Hey, team. So if we want a picture of enthusiasm, optimism, collegiality and collaboration, well, this is my team, and they all started at the Australian Dispute Centre as interns. So picking up Rajesh's and Brian's vision for building collaboration for those of you who are involved in the APCMC, and deepening those ties, as well as creating an opportunity for you all to really deepen your understanding of how mediation happens in real life on a day-to-day basis. The Australian Dispute Centre is presenting internships to all of the participants. So I'm going to hand it over to the team to make that presentation. Thank you, team.
Thank you, Deb. On behalf of the Australian Dispute Centre, it is with great pleasure that we join you here today to present the ADC Internship Awards for this year's Grand Finalists. As an associate, I can tell you that this year's APCMC team comprises of some of the most hardworking and passionate people I've had a pleasure of working with. All of us were former interns at the ADC and who have stayed on to become associates. The APCMC is one of the many projects we've had the privilege of working on this year, and it took many months of continuous work, including reaching out to universities, judges and mediators from all over the world, and it took many revisions and redrafts to get the competition materials perfectly. I can tell you that for one of our competition matrix, we had up to 41 versions for the same document.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Helen and Christelle for being such helpful colleagues over the last couple of months, and also to Deb for her wonderful support and guidance during the whole process. I'd also like to thank the APCMC Organising Committee, as well as the ICC members for their support, and also special thanks to our session supervisors who have been integral to this whole process. Special mention to Izzy, Isabella, Caroline, Carrie, Elizabeth, Victoria, Rhiannon, Evangelina, Teresa, Lizzie, Stefano, James, Rajat, Elizabeth, and Nick for their assistance. And I'm sure you guys have met them already and have already given them thanks as well.
Yep, so and now without further ado, please join us in congratulating this year's grand finalist members of the University of Auckland and West Bengal National University of Juridical Science. Teams are winning the ADC Internship Awards. All teams will be offered a 6-week internship with the Australian Dispute Centre. We are sure you will enjoy the enriching experience, so please join me in congratulating them.
Thanks, team, and congratulations. And we look forward to welcoming the interns. Don't worry, folks, you don't need to do 6 weeks full time. You can, part-time is good. So great to have you with us and to recognise you. We're now going to turn to the special mention of our preliminary final contestants. And Anne Sutherland, we've got quite a number of special category awards, and Anne Sutherland is going to present those awards. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Deb. Now, I don't yet have the information, do I?
I think it may be in your inbox, I'm hoping.
Oh, excellent. Let me check my inbox. That's a good idea. I don't seem to have
if it wasn't there before, it is now.
Run sheet, no.
So while Anne finds her special
I found my
categories,
list.
And
excuse me, everyone. You go, Deb.
No, I'm just going to say we've got quite a number of special categories, and it's not every year that we award these categories, but this year we had, in fact, in several categories, we had ties. So we congratulate all of the teams involved. Thank you, Anne.
Fabulous. My goodness, we've awarded all 10 prizes. What an outstanding crew of competitors we must have had. So it is my great pleasure to award the prize of Best Mediation Plan to Team 829, OP Jindal Team 2. Secondly, the Best Opening Statement, Team 817, University of New South Wales. Third, now when I say third, it's the third prize. They are not in, there is no hierarchy of prizes. They are all top prizes. The third prize is the Best Mediation Advocacy Skill, going to two teams have won this prestigious award, H01 Auckland University and H18 University of Queensland. The next prize is Best Teamwork. Again, we have two winners, 801 Auckland University and 824 National Law Institute University. The fifth prize that gets awarded is for the best acknowledgement of cultural differences. And that prize goes to 806, the University of Ibadan. The next prize is for the best relationship building with the other team. That goes to 802, National Law University, Nagpur. The seventh on our list, Best Public Speaker, goes to 810, Western Sydney University. The eighth, Best Creative Solution, goes to 826, University of Santo Tomé. The next prize is Best Interaction with the Mediator, goes to 827, National University of Singapore. And the final prize in this list of 10 equally wonderful prizes is Best Team Participating in the competition for the first time. And that also goes to 806, University of Ibadan.
Thank you very much, Anne, and congratulations. If we can all do another great round of applause for all of those special award winners, because there was tremendous depth of talent in this competition. So that did not make it easy for the judges at all. So congratulations to you all again. It wouldn't be the Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition online without our impromptu speech competition that Rajesh gamely hosted this afternoon. And Rajesh, I'm going to turn over to you to announce the winner of that, the wonderful impromptu speech competition.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks to your suggestion, we started this category last year and we continued this year, and we got lots of volunteers coming out. So I'm just going to say that in a ranking, I will say 3, 2, 1. So I want to say the third prize or the third position goes to Muskan Naran. She is from National Law University, Bhopal. And the second one will go to Alan Yaro from Israel. And the winning person is Dev Parita Pandey from NLU Nagpur. Congratulations, Dev Parita, if we can see you. Thank you. It was all brilliant. We gave them 3 questions and all they talk, and one, it was very related to the competition, that how do you see your team member as to winning the Oscar award? The second, we give them to ask them that how do you feel when you have to play the role of opposite gender? And they picked up on that. And the third point which we give it, what if we run this mediation competition through sign languages? Then what will happen? So that was the competition in that one. So congratulations, all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh, and congratulations to our impromptu speech competitors. We often take the view that fortune favours the bold, and certainly every competitor in this competition are bold. You're clearly leaders in your field, as students, and we anticipate that you're going to be leaders in your field, whether you carry on in the law or go into business or you go into politics or whatever you choose to do. Being able to put yourself forward, put yourself on the line is really part and parcel of of a leadership role. So thank you to all of our impromptu speech competitors who put themselves forward. But the APCMC just doesn't leave it at that. The other initiative that we introduced, because it's online, is to see if we could draw out a bit of talent. Last year we had a dance-off competition, and this year we had music, and the challenge was up to a minute of you as a performer on your musical instrument. So Isabella is going to share with us somebody who, well, the person who won this competition, Yajash from OP Jindal Uni, you are one of the bold who fortune does favor. So Isabella, can we have... It's great. That was fantastic. We will put that up on the website, and I don't know how your sound was, but the I think the sound we can you'll catch it on the rerun. But congratulations, Rajesh. And fortune does favour the bold because you too have been awarded a prize and an internship. And this is the Australian Dispute Centre Chairman's Award because that internship is with his law firm here in Australia, which is Holman Webb. And they are excited to have you on board. So we hope that you'll have an opportunity and take the opportunity to take up that internship, and we'll talk to you about what that will be over the next few weeks. So congratulations again. Now, the last wrap up from me in terms of overall awards, and not so much awards, but rankings. And it's something that we wanted to share with you. A lot of the teams were keen to know how they went. Under the Asia Pacific Commercial Mediation Competition, we broadly followed the Paris competition in this regard, as I understand, we just present the first 10 rankings. So if I may, in order of rankings, and well, let's take Rajesh's approach. We're going to start at number 10. So number 10, Nelsar University of Law, Team 1. Number 9, Macquarie University. Tied at 7th place, Singapore Management University, School of Law, and the Maharashtra National Law University of Mumbai. At 6th place, we had Tsinghua University from Beijing. 5th, OP Jindal Team 2. 4th, National University of Singapore. 3rd, West Bengal National University of Judicial Sciences. 2nd, University of New South Wales, and 1st, Auckland University. And you would know those earlier, those top rankings. So can we do a warm and hearty congratulations to all of the winners? So that's our formal events and presentations for the night. Again, I just want to thank, if I can just wrap up with lots and lots and lots of thanks. First of all, thank you to the students. This is all about students creating a learning opportunity for you to learn more about mediation, to learn more about interest negotiation, to meet students and your peers from across really the globe, for you to meet senior members of the profession, both legal profession and ADR world, so that you can gain insights from them, both their comments as judges, but also in the networking events. You have been the bold ones who've stepped forward into this opportunity, and we congratulate you for it. To the volunteers, so we have our judges, we have our mediators, we have our session supervisors. So they're all of the session supervisors, about 20 of them, all students. You have all contributed so much. Well, frankly, we wouldn't have a competition without you either. So thank you for your contribution and giving up your time in support of the students. I'll just shout out to the coaches as well. We met a few of them earlier on, but they are really the backbone of the students' engagement in the competition. The organising committee, a shout out to our wonderful organising committee, all of whom you've met this evening. So Anne Sutherland, Brian Clark, Rajesh Sharma, Helen Shervin, the organising committee who've been involved in this competition for a very long time. And I thank you very much for your ongoing support. Once again, to my fabulous team who you also met tonight, Christelle, Cheryl and Helen, thank you so much for your contributions. To our amazing session supervisor and technical person tonight, and also for your networking events and for your impromptu speech competition and networking this afternoon. Izzy, if you're there, Isabella Gillam, thank you for your enormous contributions to the success tonight and throughout the competition. Have I forgotten anybody in terms of thanks? Hoping I've caught, if I have forgotten anybody, it's a bit like the Academy Awards. Forgive me, I will make amends later on. So I'm going to take the opportunity to formally close APCMC 2021 with an invitation for you all to speak to your colleagues in other years at your universities and encourage them to get involved next year. It's wonderful to see the competition go from strength to strength. We love seeing universities return time and time again, and we thank very much the teams within the universities, the professors and lecturers and those associated with the universities in continuing to create an opportunity for the students. So I'm going to send you off with an invitation. Don't forget, if you've been involved in previous years, to think about coaching, this year, to think about coaching in future years. And I wish the teams well. The winning team, West Bengal, will have that preferential entry into Paris. But I know a good number of the other teams involved will also take the opportunity to head over to Paris. So I wish you every success. We watch very closely because our teams have historically done so well there. So congratulations again. I'm going to sign off, but it's not a sign off for us completely. We've got, we're going to keep the line open and the Zoom link open so you can have an opportunity to have a last chat, engage with somebody you haven't had a chance to catch up with. And we will, as I said, continue to keep the Zoom link open. So thank you, Izzy, thank you everybody, and we will see you next year.